A shakeup in the White House. It's the first big one for the Trump administration, just barely 100 days into its second term. Mike Waltz has been removed as National Security Advisor. He has been nominated to serve as the US Ambassador to the United Nations. Secretary of State Marco Rubio will serve as the NSA in the interim. For weeks now, Mike Waltz is said to have been on thin ice after he mistakenly added a journalist to a Signal group chat where sensitive military strikes were being discussed. Here's the reaction from the US State Department spokesperson. She found out about the changes from a reporter during a news conference.
It is clear that I just heard this from you. This is the magic. Well, I have some insights as to the potential of certain things that might happen. But when the president, and this of course is all presidential decisions, right?
For more on the story, we're now joined by Bhumika Tharoor, managing editor at The Atlantic. Bhumika, thank you very much for joining us here on Washington Watch. Bhumika, this was a story that your magazine broke. The journalist added to that Signal group chat was your highly respected editor, Jeffrey Goldberg. It was all this stunning revelation. However, it's taken about 7 weeks for heads to roll. How exactly did things play out in the past 48 hours or so?
Hi, thank you for having me. Yes, in March, we broke the story when our editor, Jeffrey Goldberg, was added to a Signal chat that was started by Mike Waltz, and then where Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth shared confidential information about an upcoming military strike. It's unclear who knew what exactly leading up to yesterday's news, but what we know is that a few days ago, Waltz wrote an opinion story sharing all of the national security wins that they've had, 100 national security wins out of Trump's 100 days into the administration. We know that Trump wanted to mark his 100 days in the administration by a rally in Michigan, and initially Waltz was to go, and then reporting is that that Waltz was then directed to not attend. And so it seems unclear how much Waltz specifically knew that this was happening and what kind of advance. But what we know is that there have been reports since this Signalgate story broke that Waltz may not be long for the position. But of course, I learned yesterday that Waltz had it has now moved to ambassador to the UN.
Indeed. So, Bhumika, Waltz, of course, is seen as a right-winger, yes, but not a Trump loyalist. So just wondering how much of that really played out into this decision that we saw.
Vance spoke about this yesterday in his remarks, that this isn't about MAGA hawks versus not. It's unclear. Waltz had a different background than some of the others in Trump's cabinet. Waltz was, he served in the Pentagon under Bush. He was a four-time congressman. He comes with a bit more expertise. And of course, earlier he was, before joining the administration, there was a moment where he was anti-Trump. And so it's possible that you mix someone with this kind of expertise that he has, there's some reporting that suggests it's made it difficult for him. But, you look at these incidents, you look at Signalgate, the national security team has had a giant shakeup. They've lost a lot of staff. Morale is low. There's reports suggesting that he had a hard time managing his staff there. And so it doesn't seem... It didn't seem surprising that this happened, but it's hard to pin down exactly what the straw was that broke the camel's back, although Signalgate seems like a big reason there. Vance suggested that moving him to becoming the ambassador to the UN was some sort of promotion, but it's hard to actually separate that.
Bhumika, very quickly, in about 40 seconds or so, U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth has come under fire too. He was also on that Signal group chat. So how long do you think he'll be safe, or could he be next in line?
It's hard to say. Hegseth has also had a lot of controversy leading up to his starting from his confirmation hearings, where people were asking him a lot about his relationship with alcohol, his judgment. He seems to have stayed safe so far, but we know that the Signalgate chat was not the only Signal group chat that Hegseth was sharing information. There was also there's reports that now indicate that there were other group chats that had where Hegseth added his wife and his brother. Just recently, last week, a number of people that are very close to Hegseth were ousted, and so it's to be seen what comes next out of that.
Indeed, something that you'll be watching, and so will we. Bhumika Tharoor from The Atlantic, thank you very much for your time here on
Thank you.
Washington.